This isn't any regular heat. This is nuclear heat. Live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America. Bringing you the latest from the Square Circle on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Jake Bockoven.
Yes, great to be with you here on another Sunday night where we can talk some pro wrestling. A particularly interesting week as we're starting to figure out who is getting down to the finalists for John Cena's tournament to face him last in his last match ever. We saw his last Raw this past weekend. And also, we now know the complete teams for War Games. And it was probably the best possible outcome, at least in my mind, for what they were going to do without much story being built into it this year to at least get the big names included. We saw Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns both joins the teams this week, as well as AJ Lee on the women's side and Becky Lynch. So we know the teams were ready to go. It'll be this Saturday. They've got one more week of Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown to get into it. But then we will have our matchups. If you look at the Survivor Series War Games card right now, it is going to be that 5-on-5 men's match between CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, and Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar, Drew McIntyre, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Logan Paul. On the women's side, you got Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, and AJ Lee now against Nia Jax, Asuka, Kairi Sane, Lash Legend, and Becky Lynch. Additionally, in that evening, we will have the Stephanie Vaquer against Nikki Bella for the women's world title and the Intercontinental Championship on the line between John Cena and Dominic Mysterio. So it should be an exciting week, an exciting episode of War Games coming up on Saturday, and we'll break it all down how we got there with this week's episode of Raw and SmackDown. I'd like to bring on my tag team partner, longtime Nuclear Heat contributor Augie Pena. Augie, how's it going today?
Oh, it's going pretty good. Other than my football teams, can't seem to get a win on there. But the wrestling's been fun. We're hitting what's normally kind of a dead period, right? You could say, but I feel like it's kind of exciting. All the big names are back, like you said. You got the John Cena tournament, kind of ramping up all that stuff. So yeah, it's been a pretty good week when you put it into that way.
Yeah, your Eagles. I have to go back to that. Your Eagles did go a 21-point lead today, so that's kind of tough.
Yeah, I was numb towards the end. It happens, but that's now 2 out of our 3 losses where we've had at least a 2-touchdown lead. The Broncos, we were up 17-3, and we lost 21. And then this one, I guess it just stings more because it's the Cowboys, right?
That's right. You'll have to hear about it from Cowboys fans all week. As Ricky C. Simmons was leaving the building, he was letting you know about it. So,
but you know what? This is a Cowboys Super Bowl. The Eagles are still 8-3 at the top of the division.
That's true.
Up there. So one team's gonna make a push for the playoffs, and one team is, I guess, fighting for that. But I feel pretty good.
yeah. And I don't even want to bring up the Huskers. There's not much silver lining to that other than another opportunity against Iowa this week, but not much fun there. So we could just jump right into the wrestling. Although shout out, like you were mentioning pre-show, to the basketball team. The Nebraska basketball is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. But let's get into WWE Raw. John Cena's final appearance on Raw, this time from Madison Square Garden. I have to admit, from our guy from Boston, they just did the Boston show, was not happy with his New York Yankees themed hat and shirt and all that stuff. Like, I get it. You gotta tend to the local audience and get to them, but you can't do that coming off a show at Boston and a homecoming and all that. But he did, and I'm sure he sold plenty of gear for it, one way or the other. So it was, again, booked to be his final appearance there. He was going through his normal thank yous and how great it is. Dom Mysterio once again interrupts. Remember last week, John Cena beat Dom Mysterio for the Intercontinental title. Dirty Dom claimed that he wants to get a rematch with Cena for the IC title, and that he's worked for everything that he has received, which was a little bit funny as well. Cena wanted to do the rematch right then, right there, but Dominic Mysterio said, we did it your way. We did it in your hometown. Now let's do it in my hometown at Survivor Series in San Diego. So thus setting up the Intercontinental Championship. But if you know Mysterio and his group of goons, they were not done. The Judgment Day teammates, JD McDonough and Finn Balor, started to circle around John Cena. That's when we had the fun kind of begin. Sheamus and Rey Mysterio came out to even the odds, and hey, we're all here. Let's just have a 3-on-3 match. So that's how they set it up. The 3-on-3 match would not main event the show. It would, in fact, go on right then and there. But fun enough match. I don't need to go too much into that. Hot tag to Cena. They had 10 beats of the Bodhrán, all three of them doing it. They all kind of did a lot of different moves and spots. And of course, Cena ultimately gets the win on his final match in Raw, as you would assume here. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of things to kind of digest there. What are your thoughts on this opening from WWE Raw?
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I think it's interesting that they're opening it with John Cena. He's the main headline, right? He's been the main headline for the past couple weeks. And the fact that he's not, main eventing them, I think that's pretty interesting. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I'm glad that they're bringing Dom back in. I know a lot of people are kind of like, why are they doing it again? With Don. But this is something I've been calling for a while. I was like, hey, I want to see Dom and John Cena. He gets that. So, the writing might be on the wall, for Dom to get it back. But I thought it was fun. And then, that 3-on-3. Normally I'm not a huge fan of that happening just like that. Oh yeah, let's all brawl and here we go. But John Cena, Sheamus, and Rey Mysterio, that's, I mean, he has history with everybody. So that, I thought that was a lot of fun, and I thought it was a great way for them to open Raw.
It was interesting. Yeah. I mean, because there's so many different routes to go. And again, all of us sitting back in fantasy booking how we do John Cena's final year, might have done a little bit differently. And for his final match on Raw in Madison Square Garden, I don't know if a random 3-way battle would be my optimal choice. I might build it up a little bit more. But ultimately, again, this is about setting up John Cena and Dom Mysterio to continue their feud. And that's where it makes it interesting, because you got to think, in this My Time Is Now tournament, is the winner going to be facing John Cena for the Intercontinental title, or will we see something at play here with Dom Mysterio maybe being able to get that back? Certainly could play out that way. Maybe you get whoever is going to face John Cena in his final bout, kind of interrupting or whatever, interfering and allowing Dominic Mysterio to get that win. So at least leaves a lot of question for what we're going to have. And yeah, it's kind of one of those play the hits. Sheamus and Rey Mysterio, again, they all have history together. But still, again, you've only got a few more matches in John Cena's career. This would not be my ideal way to book it, but a crowd pleaser for sure.
Yeah, and you don't want him to do too much either. I mean, I know it's his last Raw and all that stuff, but he even likes to joke, that he can't wrestle, things like that. And you don't want something to happen to him before the Saturday Night Main Event, because they are making that a big deal. They're turning that into something big for him. And could you imagine if John Cena, tears something or does something, trying to do a one-on-one match there? Which, I mean, he's still doing the Survivor Series War Games, so that's cool. But yeah, I don't think you can ask much more of him to do like individually that way.
Just would have been a shock if he would said one of his final matches against Dom Mysterio, but that's fine. I mean, I'm entertained by it. I think he's one of the best heels they've got going, and this certainly, I mean, the crowd eats up John Cena as a face, and as he's returned to that role, and it really helps Dominic Mysterio, in the heel role as well. So it will be fun to see regardless of what they do there. Backstage, Paul Heyman warned Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis that if you think my fourth pick of Drew McIntyre made you angry, wait until you see what I have in store for you next. Kind of a little teaser down the line of what we're going to happen. Also, I mean, kind of let you know. I mean, you'd be surprised if it wasn't you can't tease that and then not bring out Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, that 100%. Once he said that, I was like, okay, it's happening. And then on the good guy side, who's going to come be the equalizer in Roman Reigns. And I thought this was a really fun Raw. This was a really fun way to kind of set it up and get it going.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I talked about it last week, how I wasn't completely into the story of War Games. And it just seems like, again, jumbled up good guys versus jumbled up bad guys to a degree. And that can happen. So, but the idea even going into last week was like, all right, who are these fifth members going to be? Are they just going to, if it's going to be Sami Zayn again, you just kind of throwing a fifth guy in there, or is it going to be these headliners? And there's plenty to break down with that here once we get to it. But certainly the fact that you bring in Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns adds to it, and the star power now in the match alone and the spectacle of War Games is well worth it, more so than some giant backstory. Though, again, I personally prefer long-term storytelling and everything interweaving. And they've got that to a degree here with some of the matchups. But Really, they're just leaning on star power, which is fine. Again, with the guys that they're bringing in, you got both your champions involved in this war game on the men's side, and now Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. So that will be exciting. In the middle of the ring, Jackie Redmond introduced the Women's World Championess Stephanie McCure. That did not last long. She was immediately attacked by Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella basically telling Stephanie McCure that she's got to watch her back as the champion, all that sort of stuff. She's, wants to run the division. So a little bit of something here. Obviously, again, this one will be at War Games. They pulled off some surprises this week. I think it would be the surprise of all surprises if they decided to strip Stephanie McCure of the title already with Nikki Bella. So I don't know if they've done a good enough job to really make this a believable feud. And, they did the friendship kind of being now splitting apart type of thing, but it was such a short-lived friendship. So it's kind of a heated up type of first defense for Stephanie McCure. But again, against a woman in Nikki Bella that has a history on top of the division before. So it is what it is. Not necessarily the most exciting feud of the year, but it's there.
Yeah, it's there. And, Nikki is, Hall of Famer, Divas champ, all that. So it's a good, you could call it passing of the torch, but putting over, right? Putting over talent. And because I think Stephanie McCure, I think they have something there with her. She's somebody that's going to be primed like a Rhea Ripley, a Tiffany Stratton, a Liv Morgan. The main event scene will be good there. So yeah, this will be fine. Like you said, they kind of rushed it a little bit. We were hoping we knew the turn would come, but I mean, 2 weeks, 3 weeks after they were kind of good there. All that's fine. And in this way here, Nikki can also help her with the promos because we know Stephanie still doesn't know English isn't her first language, things like that. So yeah, this is a good kind of. I think this is like her second feud. First,
it's kind of the first real one. I mean, that's what I was gonna go to. Is that I probably would have been a little bit more excited if they would have went through with the Judgment Day, Roxanne Perez, especially even Raquel Rodriguez. I think those would be a little bit more intriguing. And that's not against Nikki Bella. It's just where her character is. They haven't given her singles wins since her return, basically. And so I would just like to be heated up a little bit more and actually go through a little bit something. And again, just for Roxanne Perez and where Raquel Rodriguez are, I thought that would be a little bit more exciting. But again, they don't give the type of rub to Stephanie McCure that Nikki Bella can.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, it works out. This will be a good title reign here. Like you said, it'd be a really big surprise and really for no reason if Stephanie lost this one, because Nikki Bella does not need to hold that title unless they're going to do the whole hot potato with the title, which we've talked about. We're not huge fans of that. John Cena, Dominic Mysterio, there's a reason for that one, right? John Cena needed to be the Grand Slam winner because he's the greatest of all time. You can't have him be that without it. And then if let's say Dom wins the match here on Saturday, Dom gets to say, he took the title away from Cena and all that. And here, I mean, we were all surprised when Nikki came back, so she really doesn't need any like real titles there. So yeah, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah. And I still go back to, that decision to put Stephanie McCure over, well, no, I forget her name. The other women's champion on the other brand, Tiffany Stratton was the champion. And I still don't know if she's recovered from that. So that's why I say it's really interesting that they didn't have something immediately to me for Stephanie McCure to like shoot her out of the cannon.
Yeah.
Because I think they had to kind of lay Tiffany Stratton's obviously undefeated streak, of the year kind of on the line there and pour that out. But I just don't know. I mean, we'll have to see what kind of happens with her character moving forward. But so I would have liked to see a little bit something more with Stephanie McCure immediately, but we'll see what happens after this, the Nikki Bella thing and where it goes from there. Backstage, Asuka tried to convince Bayley to join her team at War Games. Bayley shut down the idea, but then called Lyra Valkyrie an idiot. So trying to figure out who Bayley's character is. That's exactly where they want you, right? That she's still kind of any minute can flip and switch, and it's going to frustrate Lyra Valkyria. So not much on that front this week, just a little bit of moving forward. Though I thought that would have been fun if you would have kind of brought Bayley onto that team, not necessarily to complete the team. I think, storyline and everything, they end up going with Becky Lynch, which makes a lot more sense, but just, to get a little bit of damage control back together.
Yeah. That would have been a little bit of fun, but I feel like Becky or Bayley at this moment, her name is still big, but she hasn't done anything really. So it's like she couldn't have added to that, right? She's been losing feuds. So you don't want her kind of being added to a team that's going up against, Rhea, like 4 former world champions. We talked about it. And then, you got the Damage Control, Nia Jackson, Lash Legend, and she's kind of the story, right? She's new. She still looks great, but I mean, this is like her first real thing she's doing on the roster. So you needed somebody with kind of a bigger name, aka Becky Lynch, to really step in to that team. And Bailey, this was just a nice tease there.
Yeah, and just kept her character rolling there. From there, we went to the Last Time Is Now tournament. Solo Sikoa against the surprise entry of Dolph Ziggler. Yes, he has returned. Dolph Ziggler in the Last Time Is Now tournament. I love his entry. I always enjoyed his theme song. One of the best sellers in the business. Did that again here by the end of the match. So it was a hard-fought match. The crowd was certainly happy to see Dolph Ziggler back in the ring. He had a zigzag and a super kick, and there were times here where the crowd was, this close, so they did the near falls, and he almost got the win. But by the end, Samoan Spike knocked him out, and so Solo Sikoa moves on in the tournament. Now the question is Dolph Ziggler going to return, or is this a one-off?
This is probably a one-off. I think he's with TNA as well, right? That's really disappointing because these are, I'm torn. We talked about this last week with the whole Zack Ryder LA Knight thing. I love my boy LA Knight, but it's kind of sad the one-time return thing for Zack Ryder. I really liked his character. Now it's kind of the same thing for Dolph Ziggler. I think it's just a one-off for this tournament, and I think it's just a one-off. I don't think he's coming back to the WWE here. I think there's kind of been some bridges that have been burned a little bit there, for hearing some of his podcasts being where he's been on and everything. And I think they're trying to put over Solo Sikoa again, on that. But yeah, that it hurts. It's great to see these guys come back, but then for them to lose, especially lose to Solo Sikoa, I think that's a little low.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, Solo's kind of getting the push through the MFTs, and I mean, he's gotten a push for a long time, but then a little bit of up and down. But yeah, I mean, I think with both of them, losing kind of puts you, we're in the expectation they're not having some grand return, is probably just going to be a one-off. And again, excited for the guys, and especially Dolph Ziggler. I don't want to act like I wasn't at all, thrilled to see Dolph Ziggler back in the ring. But it would have been fun to give him a little bit of a run here. Yeah. Again, maybe if he's not going to be in the in any long-term plans, then you understand the idea of just kind of put over your own guy. But I guess the problem with it now is that as you look at the tournament left, there's just not a whole lot of guys that realistically make a whole lot of sense.
No.
For John Cena. So I mean, we can get to it. I mean, Penta won a match here later in the evening. Gunther, Carmelo Hayes. So we'll get to how they got there, but that's where we're at. Is Jey Uso against Rusev? I mean, maybe they love Jey Uso. They love them some Jey Uso, so you can never count that out. Highly doubt it's going to be Rusev unless they can get some of that old magic going back from the Cena feud back then, like him moving on, but not a realistic possibility. Penta and Solo. There's just no reason either of those guys should have the last matchup against John Cena. Would be a bad booking decision either way. And that's from somebody that loves Penta and would love them to continue to move him up the card. Gunther is kind of the obvious one, probably going to be the selection. Carmelo Hayes, absolutely not. LA Knight, again, could finally pay something off for LA Knight. I wouldn't hate it if they actually did it and allowed him to get a big win over Cena to leave it, but probably not what they're going to do with what we've seen with LA Knight. And there's a surprise interest because Sheamus is hurt. Don't know if that's realistic or, a real life injury or just something to sneak somebody in that could really surprise you. WWE does that all the time, right? Is okay, well, now they think they know. Now here's the surprise. And then maybe that could be the Edge or the Chris Jericho that people have been asking for. But if as is right now, it looks like Rusev or bust.
Yeah, it's this is not how I thought this tournament would be going. I mean, and if you hear the reports, and I know it's all scripted and all that, but the leaks and everything. If Jey Uso wins this tournament, I'm not saying I'm going to stop watching WWE, but I might not tune in after John Cena's last match, especially if he makes it and he beats John Cena. I think that would be kind of they've kind of done some things that have kind of turned me off a little bit anyways, but I still continue to watch it. But I think he's kind of the one person, like Penta Solo, I just don't think they have a real shot, right?
Right.
Gunther, you don't want to really see that, but okay. Rusev at least has that history with him. If it's Jey Uso, though, I'm just saying that's kind of that's going to be the nail in the coffin for me. And this surprise entry needs to be a legitimate contender that's going to probably make the finals. I'm sad because it's against LA Knight again.
Yeah.
But it needs to be that of a Chris Jericho, an Edge, or a Randy Orton. And like I said, they need to make it to the finals, but it's bad because they're on that same side as Jey Uso, and I just don't know why they're so obsessed with Jey Uso at the moment. With that, he hasn't won, but that's just kind of where I hate to say it, but that's where I feel like they're going in that direction.
And it just feels to me, again, I think they didn't have to do this tournament. They made this tournament. This was part of it to get John Cena's final opponent. And I thought that was going to be fun, but I thought it was going to be kind of like payoff to John Cena, play the hits, bring back his rivals, have everybody kind of square off. And so I envisioned a much more exciting and fun tournament. Again, not to put down some of the things. I mean, there's certain guys that certainly could belong in here. I mean, you could put Uso in just because like we're doing now, is you could see it with the way the WWE move, has been putting, some stock behind him. But again, we're down to, 7 of the 8 in other than Uso, which would, he'd just continue to be their golden child for seemingly no other reason than his entrance. And Gunther, which we'll have our own, we can talk about that down the line. But I mean, he's already been given Goldberg. He's been fed a lot. Already, so does he need more? There's just not even a whole lot of believability with some of the final 8. So I just think maybe if they were going to go this route, then maybe you didn't have to make the whole spectacle of the big tournament because it just felt like we were going to get more. Again, if Zack Ryder and Ziggler returns are enough for you, then maybe I'm wrong. But to me, it just fell a little bit short, especially when you're going to hold those names out. And to me, and I mentioned this before, surprise Gunther. If you would have surprise returned Gunther, then okay, here's a real surprise. Here's a guy that can win the tournament, likely the favorite, all that sort of stuff. But they promoted that.
Yeah.
That should have been their biggest surprise.
Yep. No, I agree with you. And I mean, there's guys, the Miz lost to Jey Uso in the first round. The Miz
could have had the Miz move on.
The Miz is someone who has a big history with John Cena, and he's like the one guy that didn't get it. I agree with, I thought it was gonna be like the Miz, Randy Orton. I thought those guys would be in it. I'm happy that the Zack Ryder and Dolph Ziggler thing came out, but how cool would that have been, like Randy Orton versus Dolph Ziggler?
Yeah.
Randy Orton versus Zack Ryder. Those guys. Instead, we got, LA Knight. Yes, that's still great. That's hard on that. But and then you get Solo Sikoa. It's like Solo Sikoa was in a little bit of that too. Towards that end, with the bloodline, but it's like that. I don't know. That just wasn't big. And even other names, like remember Austin Theory? I thought, this could be a time to bring him back. Not saying he could win it, but he had probably one of the worst WrestleMania matches ever with John Cena. They could have tried
at least some history.
Yeah. They could have tried to do something with that, but it was fun. I think the first round was fun, but now that they've kind of, and especially with Sheamus being out, because if you would have put Sheamus in this mix, I'd say, okay, he's kind of the guy, keep that Intercontinental Championship on him, go this route. But with what they're doing, the payoff just hasn't been there. And I think that's been a little disappointing because this whole tournament, I think, was great. Like you said,
great idea.
Yeah, great idea of it. I think everybody was watching for it. And now we see our 7 of the 8, and we're all hoping now that surprise entry is an Edge or a Randy Orton. Like I said, somebody that could potentially give us a classic John Cena last match.
Well, it's funny again because that's part of being a wrestling fan and part of doing this show is you can always fantasy book, your favorite ideas, your favorite guys to go in here. Rarely does it live up to that expectation, and that's because there's contracts and age and retirements and all that stuff. Like, sure, I mean Batista and JBL would be great, but they're not going to come in here. Kurt Angle, guys that he had history with early on in his career are not going to come out. But you do bring a point. I mean, how's Randy Orton not even mentioned? Unless he is the surprise replacement. And I know they had a feud earlier this year. I mean, he was part of the final kind of run with Cena already. But there's so much history there to not even. I mean, if they don't even acknowledge it or even have it as why wouldn't you have him at least in the tournament?
Yeah, and the biggest name we haven't even talked about that has the biggest unfinished story with John Cena, The Rock,
The
has
Rock,
not been
yeah.
mentioned once. And I now saw, I think he's starting to do Jumanji or something like that. So I'm like, dude, you made him turn heel. He sold his soul to you. There was no payoff. You could have thrown his name in here. I thought there'd be more like surprise entries the further they kind of go on there. But man, now I'm getting irritated about this whole thing. Unless we're, you hear that music tomorrow, it's tomorrow, right? That the match is going on, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And if you hear the, if you can smell or something, okay. Then I think it all pays off. And if he wins in advance, I think that'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, no Randy Orton mentioned in there, the Miz losing in the first round, no Rock, no Batista. I know he's not but even Brock Lesnar, I thought maybe, Brock Lesnar essentially squashed him again. I'm like, maybe, bring that back, but no, they're going with like 3 out of 4 guys that I really don't think have much history with him. Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah.
Why is he going here? And then, like you said, Penta and Solo Sikoa have no reason of really being in this tournament. And they're some of the semifinalists.
Oh, and it's funny too, because last week I felt like this tournament and the excitement for what it could be was overshadowing War Games.
Yep.
And War Games was missing some pieces. Now War Games is at front and center of mind, which they want right for Saturday coming up. But the tournament feels kind of more like, okay, let's just get to the end, and because I'm not really on for the ride again, unless this last surprise is a big, welcome, exciting surprise. So we'll see what they do there. We got to take a break. We got to go through the rest of Raw and SmackDown, as well as give you our predictions before the end of the show for War Games. So we'll do that coming up next year on 93.7 The Ticket on Nuclear Heat.
The savings continue all November long at Elway Power Sports of Lincoln. They're extending their red tag sale with machines priced at invoice plus $300. That's it. No freight, no setup, no extra fees. Plus 10% off snowplow kits, 10% off fly motocross gear, and 50% off all in-stock road tires. Elway Power Sports of Lincoln has you covered all under one roof with a large selection of side-by-sides, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft at their 27th and I-80 location. They can't wait to get you set up for the holiday season.
This Black Friday, it is time to hit your goals before the new year even starts. At Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping, get 40% off our next 10-week challenge, plus 6 weeks for free to kickstart your fitness journey. Start training December 1st with kickboxing, strength training, and personalized nutrition. So when our official challenge begins January 10th, you're already ahead of the game. Spots are limited. Don't wait for January to make your resolution. Start strong now. Visit fxbeatlincoln.com or stop by one of our 2 locations at South 40th and Yankee Hill or North 70th and Vine. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping. Stronger starts here.
MWR is dedicated to building attractive, affordable steel buildings that exceed your expectations. From commercial to residential to agriculture storage, steel buildings are cost-effective, attractive, and versatile. Plus, they're a lasting investment and an ideal choice. MWR uses Sentinel Building Systems out of Albion and can service you all over the state and region. If you have interest in a steel building, post-frame building, or fencing, give MWR a call today at 402-980-5273 or go to mwrbuildingandfence.com.
Hi, Charlie Stone here, and it's that time of the year again. Time for the annual Happy Honda Days at Honda of Lincoln. With me on the line, Andy Goodyear, to tell us all about it.
The exciting news is we have more selection and more savings. We have over 400 new 2025 and 2026 Hondas to choose from, with a great opportunity to get year-end savings on every remaining new 2025.
Do you have some Happy Honda Day specials?
Sure do, Charlie. For example, you can lease a new 2025 Accord Sport Hybrid for just $349 a month, and we have financing from just 0% APR. We've also included over 125 pre-owned of all makes and models, and as always, our certified pre-owns are in this sale as well.
Well, maybe it's time you experience the best. The Honda of Lincoln way of doing business. 27th and Yankee Hill Road or online at hondaoflincoln.com.
This holiday season, give the gift of good taste with a gift card from Valentino's. During double discount days, double your discount from $5 to $10 free with a $50 gift card purchase. Valentino's handcrafted pizza has been a family favorite for generations, and our gift cards make the perfect holiday gift. And right now, during gift card double discount days, when you buy $50 in gift cards, get a $10 gift card free. Happy holidays from Valentino's.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back here in Nuclear Heat. We are spending our time on Monday Night Raw. We've got to get through the second part of this episode. It's okay, though, because honestly, Raw was better than SmackDown once again this week. So we might do a quick quick review of SmackDown. But hopefully we'll still have time to get there. We were just coming off talking about Solo Sikoa and Dolph Ziggler in the Last Time Is Now tournament, which kind of broke off two separate discussions. But we can move on. Again, at this point, it was Alexa Bliss's promo as she was calling out Charlotte Flair. She needs her to come out and join this War Games and help. That's been kind of a big theme this week. If you remember last week, Charlotte Flair kind of walked out on the opportunity to join the good team, right, on the good guy team in War Games. Kind of interesting that she had Alexa Bliss, who's 34 years old now, had to defend herself on Twitter, I believe, because a lot of people, they did the promo and she was looking straight into the camera. People are saying, she looks older. What happened? Well, she aged. She's 34 years old now, which is interesting because, I mean, I noticed it too, right? I mean, you could see it. And that's just part of the, part of the character she does with the ponytails and or whatever you call it. I'm not an expert in hairstyles, but pigtails, pigtails, and just kind of, I mean, so she kind of has leaned into that. She's a diminutive, a stature type of woman throughout her career. So she always kind of played that down. I was thinking here lately, they might need to change her presentation, because at some point you can't be the little girl when you're, when you're getting up there in age.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it's the WWE, right? You got look at how like 41-year-old Nikki Bella still,
right?
She's still, I mean, she's still out there doing that. But no, I understand it. I mean, give her props. I think she's a mom now too, right? I think that's why she was gone for a while. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, come on, guys. I'm like, I looked at myself and we're her age, right? And I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, dang, I'm looking older too now. So, it happens, but no, they could change it up, but it's just because with the pigtails and things, when she was the goddess, she had like straight down hair and everything, right? I think, so I guess they could always go back to that. And people have been calling for, to go back, because she still kind of has the, what's her character that she is now? It was with the Bray Wyatt. I can't think of the
I don't even know
name.
The doll's name that she carries around.
The name of it. But yeah, they could go back to that. And then she's still wearing the We're Not Friends shirt too, isn't she?
Yeah.
And that's still kind of weird too, because her and Charlotte are obviously friends now. And all that stuff. But no, I agree. They can go back to the goddess, and I think that'd be fine there.
Yeah. We'll see what they do if they pivot at all. But that was just kind of funny little thing that happened online. In any case, during this promo, Asuka, Kairi Sane, Nikki, Lash Legend, and Nia Jax all came out to attack. So we had to do the thing. Rhea and Io come out, and eventually Charlotte Flair comes out with a kendo stick and makes the save, but she's still not cool with Rhea. So we'd have to wait for another episode to see what went on there. The Women's Intercontinental Championship, Maxine Dupree against Becky Lynch. Very, Dupree's looking, she's in her hometown. She's looking to make the upset. So she's aggressive right from the bell. Lynch was trash talking, doing her normal thing, overconfident, still frustrated with referee Jessica Carr throughout all of this. So at one point in this match, near the end, Becky Lynch exposed the turnbuckle as she was getting ready for to cheat a little bit to see if she could get the win. AJ Lee makes her return and provides a distraction. At this point, Dupree launches herself off the top rope, pins Becky Lynch, and wins the title. A major upset. If I'd have booked it a little bit differently, I would have done this out of the gate, not had her already upset Becky Lynch twice, but I get it. These were count outs and kind of wins by technicality. She was still going to have to pull up this big upset. And it was one of the bigger upsets that we've seen But as soon as AJ Lee came out there, you kind of thought maybe the work was in. So
Yeah.
interesting to kind of, again, to look at all this. We've talked about it. Becky Lynch has certainly helped that Intercontinental Championship. So to strip her of it will be interesting moving forward. And I'm just, call me a doubter. I hate to do it. But I'm not expecting the greatest championship run for Maxine Dupree. So that's where the challenge is next, is how, you get the upset. Yeah, you get that moment. But how do we kind of move your character from here and make it interesting? So we'll see. Dupree could have a long career. Don't get me wrong. Just where her character is now still feels like the underdog, right? Are we, so it's going to be interesting to see how they move this forward.
Yeah, it will be. And, I expect we'll probably see her run it again with Becky Lynch on there. And since Becky Lynch is threatening to sue, if you listen to some of those words, I don't know on what basis, but she's, she went on this whole rant where she said she was going to sue and everything. But no, I agree. And the funny thing about it is we live in a world where Maxine Dupree has won a singles title before Chad Gable has. Because, that was kind of his big thing, is he's never won a singles title. Maxine Dupree, who just recently we were like, she's probably one of the worst wrestlers, in the WWE. Now won it, like you said, great moment. But yeah, after Becky Lynch, she's gonna have to do a lot of work, or they're gonna have, I don't know if you go this way, but maybe she has a feud with AJ Lee, because AJ Lee helped her. I know they're both good guys, but you could always turn one of them heelish there. Because with Maxine Dupree, I mean, we hadn't even seen her on TV. She wasn't really on TV there all that much. So yeah, I don't know. You gotta have some big names with her and get some big wins, or else, like you said, it's gonna be a short reign, or it's gonna be a Julia USA, US title run, and we know how bad that went.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, I mean, the Intercontinental title, obviously, it's a mid-card belt. It's made to be that way. So, Dupree, at some point, you want a mid-carder to kind of use it that way to try to rise up the ranks within WWE, and you can't just lean on the veteran. But again, going from Becky Lynch and what she did for that Intercontinental title now to the question of could Maxine Dupree even come close to matching that? Probably not. So, how are you going to get the most out of it? It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Maxine Dupree as a champ. Again, though, I think this would have been fantastic. If you're going to do it, find a different way. I wouldn't have had Maxine Dupree win on technicalities before this. Kind of took away from the biggest upset, right? It was still a huge upset. But, I think it could have been. I mean, this would be on par if you would have just done it shockingly, in a way that we didn't see it coming as one, television. You can't, I got to look, I got to turn back in and see what's going on, because I just did not see that coming, as opposed to kind of lining it up this way. And again, I still would have told you going in this match, Becky Lynch would have won, but as soon as AJ Lee made a return, that kind of had the writing on the wall. Then we go from that to the last time is now tournament match. Again, Gunther already advertised for this against Javon Evans. Gunther returning to his new old music, if you will. Don't love it, actually, myself. I know some people like it from his previous years of fighting and the character he had with Walter. I just felt the Gunther recent music, first of all, love it. That's probably one of it is, but I think it was such good heel music. And now if they're going to bring him in, I mean, are they it's not necessarily rebranding him, because it's some of his old music, but it just feels more like Ilya Dragunov doing the whole kind of symphony looking kind of thing. Yeah. It doesn't feel evil. It feels maybe unique, but it doesn't feel like an evil character is walking down.
Yeah, and I can see that as well. I did like the Gunther music too. I am hoping, if they're going back to his music, I mean, I hope they bring his posse back, have Ludwig Kaiser. I know he's kind of doing his own thing, but you can you can have him play that, right? You can have him play Ludwig Kaiser and El Grande Americano and all that stuff with it. But I think they're bringing more people's old theme songs back, right? The one I'm waiting for is Finn Balor's. They need to bring his back, because that's phenomenal on there. But as long as they don't change his name back to Walter, I think we'll be fine.
Well, they've given too much to the Gunther character. They can't do that. For what this was worth, this was a good match, which is also interesting to have Gunther come back and not do a squash match. But it was Javon Evans who were trying to show off what he could do. Ultimately, Gunther wins, power bombs, and then gets the submission sleeper for the win for Gunther. And then we wrapped up WWE Raw, kind of how we were talking to begin the show. Paul Heyman introduced his 4 men that make up the Vision side of the War Games. But I can't tell. Is Logan Paul part of the Vision now? I think, is he officially?
I think maybe for just War Games, he might be. I think we'll see like a turn on him. Yeah, it's weird because all of a sudden now, they're all buddy in that. But I think it's just for the sake of War Games.
It's also interesting because when he stands in the ring with them, he's taller than everybody else. So this is kind of an interesting note. He looks the part. But Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed. And then, of course, CM Punk, the Usos, and Cody Rhodes come out to start the brawl. This is where Brock Lesnar arrives on the scene and comes out. He's the 5th member of Survivor Series. They don't have to say it, but you can context clues kind of read it. Yeah. He picks up where he left off, usually, right, in WWE scene. Suplexes, Punk. Then takes care of Rhodes with a few suplexes before Roman Reigns comes out, makes his appearance. So now we know the 5-on-5 War Games. They stare down. They have a little bit of a battle. Roman Reigns gets the better of it with the Superman punch. Then Bronson Reed tries to take out Roman Reigns when he's focused on Brock Lesnar. Attempts the tsunami, but Reigns then again gets the Superman punch, and everybody gets to brawl to the end, including Roman Reigns spearing Bronson Reed and 2 members of the New York Police Department through the barricade. So very interesting way to end. I didn't know if they were going to run much more with the NYPD getting involved. They didn't, which is probably a good thing, but I'm sure that live crowd that definitely probably got a reaction there.
Yeah, and those 2 NYPD officers, we can expect to see them as world champs in the next 5 years or so.
That's right.
They tend to do that, but I thought this was fun. This was a good thing. And Roman Reigns coming back looking a little bit leaner, right? I kind of noticed that he had that arm sleeve too. So that car is like smoking. But sorry. But yeah, so I thought it was fun, and Brock Lesnar, of course, coming back like you said, and then Roman kind of adding it to there. The one thing that bugs me about all this though is when they did the advertisement posters for it. Now that they have the teams and everything, CM Punk's or Cody Rhodes is in the middle. This to me is CM Punk's team because it's CM Punk versus Division, right? And I feel like he recruited the Usos, recruited Cody Rhodes. And then Roman Reigns just kind of shows up, because he shows up because he's Roman Reigns. So I think they're trying to make it seem where Cody's the captain, where to me, this should be CM Punk's team.
Well, this is where it's very strange. And you're right. I mean, this might be really, kind of into the details. But the good side is, it's hard to tell, one, who the fan favorite is, another who the company thinks they're pushing. It's just a lot. Like when you bring in Roman Reigns as your surprise 5th and you get that reaction against Brock Lesnar, it's like, okay, these are the main guys, right? And it's true. And at the same time, that's why I talked about the fear was in doing it last week, is you're overshadowing both your champions. You have 2 guys that aren't champions come in, overshadow both CM Punk and Cody. And then I noticed that this week, and we'll get into it when we talk about SmackDown, but, Paul Heyman came out there. They were teasing, that they were going to dominate, whatever. The Usos said, they didn't come alone. And the crowd's chanting for CM Punk.
Yep.
And then the crowd chants for Roman Reigns.
Yep.
And then Cody's music hits. And Cody, I think either that day or the day before, was wearing a Captain Cody, it was either Raw or SmackDown shirt. And so it just, I don't know if everybody's aligned in who even it would be the team leader, what the company's focus would need to be about who is doing that moving forward. Again, it is a lot of good guys thrown together.
Yeah.
And against a bunch of bad guys. And I think they could have done a little bit of a better way of letting us know who loses the most if they lose this match.
Yeah.
I don't even know who loses anything if you lose this match.
Yeah, that makes sense because I think we both agree that the Vision needs to win this a lot more than the champions do on that. And this still just makes me sad at Seth Rollins getting injured because he still would have been world heavyweight champ, and then he would have been the center, champ versus champ. Whereas now you have CM, like we talked about, CM Punk and Cody Rhodes on the same side there. But I think the one who's going to lose the most and the one that's kind of been promoting it and kind of having more of a voice is Cody, right? Because he's kind of saying, I'm going to be the captain and all that stuff. Because outside of him being there and him helping, like, why is he in this, right? Like, because he was there to congratulate John Cena, and then I think he just came out to help.
Just got involved with the good guys,
I mean, to me, and I think a lot of people are agreeing, he should not be your captain. It should be CM Punk.
Yeah, we'll see what they do with it. It's going to be interesting if they can kind of get a little bit better of a vision on what is necessarily at stake and who's leading and all that in this final week before we get to Saturday. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back here on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket.
Hey guys, it's Carly from Boyk Farm Outfitters. Farmers, you need to know about Green Eye Spot Spray. With Green Eye, we replace your existing spray boom with a brand new aluminum boom equipped with camera technology that identifies and sprays only weeds and not your crop. The boom comes with 2 spray lines so you can still broadcast residual herbicide while you're spot spraying weeds that are up. Green Eye users in Nebraska are saving a ton of money on herbicides, but that's just the beginning. Learn more at BoykFarmOutfitters.com. That's BOECK FarmOutfitters.com.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back talking some pro wrestling here on 93.7 The Ticket on Nuclear Heat. If you like pro wrestling, you're more than welcome and encouraged, in fact, to join us every Saturday or Sunday night at 9 o'clock from 9 to 10. Share with your friends. Make it part of your weekly WWE experience here with us here on Nuclear Heat. We were just getting to SmackDown. We had already talked all about WWE Raw, so I mentioned it earlier. There's a little bit more going on in Raw and SmackDown, but still a little bit to decipher here from Friday night's episode. So Paul Heyman, The Vision, Logan Paul, they all come out. And Logan Paul, by the way, with notes written on his hand, which got the internet in a stir a little bit as well. I think that was a very good... I think they're kind of playing a trick there. Logan Paul didn't have many lines. So he was directly going to look down at his hand and his lines there just to get a little bit more heat on him before the good guys came out. Once again, they did the thing. I think it's always silly. Paul Heyman, you make him the oracle, kind of the smart guy that runs everything in the company. And then he always comes down to, hey, we got the numbers game. And it's like, all right, well, obviously, I mean, this is War Games. Of course, you're not coming alone. And so, ultimately you had the Usos expecting Cody Rhodes music to hit. I mentioned it earlier. The fans were chanting for Roman. They were chanting, for CM Punk. And ultimately Cody's music hits. And they didn't even get Cody because Cody was backstage assaulted by Drew McIntyre in a bus. So pretty brutally beat down. Looked like something that was going to take some time to recover from. But didn't last long. We saw him later in the night. So we'll get to that here in a little bit. We did have the U.S. Championship defended Ilya Dragunov against J.D. McDonough. Again, as a lot of these matches with Dragunov and some of these high flyers have been very entertaining. Fight of the night possibly with this. Ends as most Dragunov defenses have ended with a torpedo, Moscow, and an H-bomb. Very fun stuff. Again, I don't necessarily love every part about Ilya Dragunov, but the Mad Dragon part, even the neck tattoo that he got in his return, I just think they might need to do a little bit of something different with his entrance instead of doing the Maestro thing. I don't know if that's going to catch on or do anything for his character, but that torpedo Moscow looks devastating. H-bomb is what it is. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of moves in wrestling that you can probably have a better ending than that, but it's at least unique. But the torpedo Moscow is even, he comes flying in.
Yeah, he does. And, I'm not, we talked about, I'm not a huge fan of his, but he's great in the ring. And then you put in JD McDonough. Oh man, they delivered. I actually was rooting for JD McDonough. I was like, this could be fun. And then speaking of his neck tattoo real quick, they need to shade that in a little bit more because you could barely tell he has that thing there. I kind of thought it was like marker or something. But no, it's a tattoo. But man, all his moves are great. They both, he and JD McDonough sold, everything on there. And man, that finisher is just, it's something. They're just, it's amazing what people are capable of doing, right? And these athletes. And it just reminds you why you shouldn't be doing this to your siblings when you're younger, because he's, like I did, because these, guys are professionals and it takes a lot. And man, the way he goes in with that finisher is just incredible.
Yep. Even between the two of them, I mean, JD McDonough did a reversal of one of his moves, and I don't have the technical terms for it, but just looked amazing. Yep. And again, that's been Dragunov every week. So I think that was kind of the plan, right? In handing him the U.S. title and the open opportunity there is to put on a show. He's absolutely done that. Here's the strange match of the night. Carmelo Hayes against Bronson Reed. Again, this is in John Cena's tournament to go on to see who's going to ultimately face John Cena. Going into the match, obviously Bronson Reed's going to win this one, right? Well, it did not go quite that way. You know, as the classic David versus Goliath, Carmelo Hayes was fighting up. He kind of got the crowd behind him, which is interesting. I don't know if he's a heel. I mean, I think he's a face now, but they didn't. They kind of did a quick turn on him with, with the Miz and all that. And I just don't know if everybody's ready to embrace him, or we don't have a reason to really think of him as a good guy. But one way or the other, he was the underdog in the match, and that's usually enough. We had Breaker and Paul come down to the ring, try to interfere with the matches. They were met with the match. They were met with the Usos to kind of equal it out. And then surprisingly, while the referee is off picking daisies or something, I can't remember. He was distracted. Cody Rhodes comes in and knocks Bronson Reed out. Basically hits him into the corner of the ring, outside the ring post on the outside, and then hit his finisher, the crossroads there. And the ref counted Bronson Reed out. Carmelo Hayes advances. So very surprised by a lot of the decision here. Cody Rhodes then would go on to have a very impassioned speech promo on top of the announcer's desk, which I think was the biggest takeaway from the segment. But yeah, just a lot going on there. Bronson Reed going from 1 week fighting for a championship that he didn't care that his own friends cost him the opportunity yet, to losing to Carmelo Hayes. I mean, you kind of got to decide what you're going to do with the guy, right? And then Cody Rhodes, again, to my talking point earlier, is if you're going to have that brutal of an assault on him, don't have him come right back.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to the end of the show. There's still 2 or 3 matches left.
Yeah, it was weird. I think the more surprising thing, though, and you're going to get a little laugh out of this, is the fact that it only took one crossroads, which is considered to be a weak finisher, to get big Bronson Reed to be counted out. That to me, I know, all this stuff scripted, all that stuff, but make it believable to a point. Like, have him hit 2, have him hit it off the announcer, something. But it's just one, and then that was enough. Yeah, but it's super Cody Rhodes. I mean, they're doing the same thing. We like him, but we're like the whole pushing him, all that to the top, being the main guy. We've kind of talked about. But yeah, that's kind of just where they go. Because I thought, Cody Rhodes is now going to be out of War Games. I was like, this is probably that. Like, hey, another surprise. Nope, he's like you said, he's there. I'm not even at the end of the show, really. And then he gives his whole speech, and I think that's supposed to be his speech, that this is his team and this is his War Games to lose.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, I think that's how they're positioning it. I just wonder if they will listen to the crowd from earlier in the night and realize, at some point, Cody and Cody's been their front runner. I mean, he's been the guy they've kind of based their stories around over the last several years. But even him saying, telling Paul Heyman, "You build them and I break them," basically type of thing, is like, yeah, it's true. I even forgot that he'd kind of beaten Brock Lesnar twice, and it's just like, what more is there really for him to do without a change in character at some point? So we'll see. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. More than likely, we'll have 2 more main events with Cody Rhodes in the next couple of years. Which again, I'm not overly upset by it or anything. It just would like a little bit of a change there. Then we had DIY against Fraxium, Gargano and Ciampa against Nathan Frazier and Axiom. Interesting in this match, at least. I wasn't all that interested in this match, but I think it took an interesting turn whenever you unmask a luchador. Candice LeRae did that to Axiom. And so now there's quite a bit of heat on them. I mean, that's just a no-no in wrestling, right? That gets heat on the bad guy. So DIY and Fraxium, I'm sure, not done with this feud, but DIY picked up the win there.
Yeah, and it was, it was fine. The unmasking was fun. That's always fun, to see that kind of for the first time there. But, I mean, they've kind of ran these over and over again. They need to kind of do something more. But, the heat that they'll get, we'll see if the crowd lives up to it. Because it also depends on the crowd, right? If the crowd believes it, the crowd boos them everywhere, they can get to a Dom Mysterio type of heat there, which I think is kind of where they're going. Because, DIY, to me, they've been kind of stale for a while now.
Well, it's interesting, too, because I was thinking about it with Axiom, and it's like, wow, that's kind of, they didn't really build up the unmasking. I don't necessarily like the fact that they just have his character is just like a guy, and he doesn't have he doesn't have a deep voice or anything. So it's just kind of like, all right, well, I get it. There's just a guy behind the mask, but that's the whole idea of the mask, is to make you kind of believe in something a little bit different, right? And so I thought they could have built it up, but then you kind of really think about it and you're like, well, who really is Axiom, and what bigger place to do it than on the main event, on the main roster at WWE.
Yeah.
So it's still, while it maybe seem rushed in WWE standard, it's still a big deal there. And so, I mean, we'll see what they do with it next. But I don't know. It's really the one thing they could have done to make me really interested. I don't want to say really interested, but interested in what's going to happen next. So as far as that goes, a job well done.
Yeah, no, like I said, it was fun. It just kind of happened between two teams that I was kind of like, oh, okay, these are all right, that's where it goes. And then, like I said, the unmasking happened. You're like, oh, because we know the wrestling, the world of luchadors, that, like as you said, that's a big no. So it is fun to see there. And yeah, we'll kind of see where because once the mask comes off, it's kind of like, now what are you gonna do? Because we know who you are, we know what you look like. So now you got to kind of be something big there.
And my favorite part about it, I think it was Bad News Barrett, or I can't remember the commentator, was just saying he's hideous.
Yeah,
he is ugly. No wonder why he wears a mask. So that was a lot of fun. We also had Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley sit down. It was kind of weird because Charlotte Flair was walked in earlier with Alexa Bliss. It was just a as if live type of segment. It's like, all right, I'm gonna have you sit down with Charlotte. And then like 30 minutes later, it was like this mass-produced piece of like dramatic music and flashbacks and all that. And you're like, how'd this happen? I thought they were just gonna have a conversation. But Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley ultimately agree to move on, respect each other, and trust each other. All that on the War Games side. Very interesting because Charlotte Flair, again, had kind of pursued maybe a different character. They completely leaned into her older character, almost washing away anything to do with the previous character, which might be the way to go here, again, as you're building up War Games and the star power that she has had previously. But it does seem like they've completely washed away any sort of, hey, here's Charlotte with a new character, maybe can develop something. No, let's just go with dominating Charlotte Flair, who hates everybody.
Yeah, it's weird, but I don't know. I'm gonna get some hate on this here. I know this has been good for her character and everything there, but I'm just not 100% still behind this whole Charlotte Flair thing. I think she's great in the ring, but I think she's a horrible actress. I hate to say it, but she just looks like she tries too hard. So kind of everything she's doing right now to me is, I'm just like, I'm not all for it.
Fair enough. We'll see what they do with her. Yeah, I mean, she's fantastic in the ring. You can't argue that. So maybe rely on those strengths, and maybe they are kind of pulling the plug on, hey, let's do some, really lean into her character and developing acting and all that sort of stuff. So we'll see what they do next with them. But as maybe could be predicted, they're on the same team for now. We'll see what happens Saturday night. Then we had Penta against Finn Balor. This was the main event in the My Time Is Now tournament. Not much to go here. Again, great match, but not a whole lot of depth to it. Finn Balor missed the coup de grace. Ultimately, Penta hits the Destroyer for the win. Kind of tearing me both ways. I love both these guys. Felt both of them needed more wins. Finn Balor's over enough. He doesn't necessarily need a win. I just always like to see him get another one. Penta did need a win. So this probably made the right decision here.
Yeah, I agree with that. As much as I would have liked to see Finn Balor advance, Penta kind of needs it. We talk about it, if Penta would have lost in the first round, would have been like they're kind of burying him. But it's just one of those, doesn't make sense because he has no history with John Cena, So no real reason for that. But he needed a win, and a win over Finn Balor is still something.
Yeah, that's big. Finally, as we get to it, the final not match, but just segment here. AJ Lee was introduced as the fifth member. All the good girls came out, and so they introduced AJ Lee. The heels attacked, and including Becky Lynch. So Becky Lynch revealed as the final member of the bad team, right? The heel side of War Games coming up. So as we get to it, our final predictions here as we finish off the show. We'll start. We already kind of gave it. Stephanie Vaquer versus Nikki Bella. It's Vaquer in no way, shape, or form is it going the other way. Cena versus Dom Mysterio.
Are you 50-50
here?
With Dom on this one.
You're going to go with Dom.
Yep.
Some hijinks from somebody else helping out?
Probably, but I think Dom just kind of needs, give him title back because Cena's going to be gone anyways. And nobody else in the tournament, I think, needs to be the Intercontinental Champ, so Dom.
Yeah. All right, the 5-on-5 men's side, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Usos, and Roman Reigns against Lesnar, McIntyre, Breakker, Reed, and Logan Paul.
I think it's got to be the Vision. They need it more than the good guys do.
I agree with you there. And on the women's side, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, AJ Lee, gets Nia Jax, Asuka, Kairi Sane, Lash Legend, and Becky Lynch.
The same. I think the bad ones need it more, but I think the good guys are going to win on this side.
I do. I mean, I like when we disagree, so we can see who does better. But I think we're agreeing here. But you never know. WWE sometimes can throw in some surprises. We'll see if they get us this week. And of course, again, tune into Raw and SmackDown on the way to Saturday's War Games. We'll talk about all of it next week on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket. Thanks for joining us. Again, tell your friends about us here and join in the conversation if you ever want to. 402-464-5685 as our show is going. But that will conclude for Nuclear Heat and Ticket Weekends tonight. We'll be back bright and early for early break in the morning on 93.7 The Ticket.